however format they're going to do it. I think more people are able to get together. They've gotten shots. They'll get together with at least close friends. I see that's happening now. All right, let's get things going. Get our show on the road. Whoever joins in, joins in. Okay, and share screen. And I'm going to begin with this, and I'll run the text up for you in a second. It is part of in the Siddur Sim Shalom, they have a beautiful poem that they have right before the Shochen Ad. And it is from Ibn Gvirol, and it is in the English, "At the dawn I seek you, refuge, rock sublime." I have it here on the bottom of the page. I'll just, here we go. Enlarge it a little bit here. Okay, "At the dawn I seek you, refuge, rock sublime. My morning prayers I offer, and those at evening time. I tremble in your awesome presence, contrite, for my deepest secrets lie stripped before your sight. My tongue, what can it say? My heart, what can it do? What is my strength? What is my spirit too? But should music be sweet to you in mortal key, your praise will I sing so long as breath's in me." So this now in the Hebrew, I have in front of you, "Shacha avakesh chatzur miskabi." So I found this very beautiful meditation on Ibn Gvirol.
Shachar avakesh chatzur miskabi.
שחרי וגם ערבי לפני גדולתך אעמוד ואתבהל אליך תראה כל מחשבות ליבי זה אשר יוכל הלב והלשון לעשות ומה כוח רוחי בתוך קרבי הנה לך תיתן זמרת אנוש על עודך לעודתי נשמת אלוה אשר יוכל הלב והלשון לעשות ומה כוחי רוחי בתוך קרבי הנה לך תיתן זמרת אנוש על עודך
Okay, you get the flavor. Here is Joe. Ibn Gvirol is from Spain, so the singer here, Shlomo Bar, has given a very Spanish feel in this presentation. And notice he's also added these hand motions with it that follow the words very well in the Hebrew. You have it there in the English in front of you. All right, it sets our mood for us. So now we're going to go ahead. Joe is here with us. As long as Joe is with us, everything is good. Case connecting. And we're going to continue Shabbat morning. And pull this out. Pull this out. Welcome to Hollywood Temple Bethel. We got our opening page. And we're going to go into Shochen Ad. And Shochen Ad also, I want to get us into a wake-up mood. And so I have this one for you from Shmulik Frank, who really wants us to wake up for Shochen Ad. We get the goat out of the way and extract out of the way, we start with Shochen Ad. A little bit. There we go. Sing it with the Yabba. Okay.
צדיקים בשם לישורים ועושה בעילום יא בביי יא 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 צדיקים בשם לישורים ועושה בעילום יא בביי יא 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 בפי ישורים תשרור צדיקים תסבור ובלשון חסידים תזכרו וכן
All right, now go up here and fix it.
That gives us our wake
No,
up
you
for
don't
the
swipe
morning.
it, you tap it.
Okay, hold on.
You got it.
Let me just turn off the mic here. Hold on. Let me just turn off the mic. Get the background
good.
sound. One second. Okay. 1 second. We get the background sound. Joe, good Shabbos. Good morning. Is he having problems getting in? Okay. Let's turn off the mics for a second. We'll get the background noise. We'll come put them back on in a little while. That's a wake up for us. Okay, from out on the farm, Sheikhin Ad with the Yava Bai. And we continue with the morning. Yishtabach Shimcha Lahad Makenu and Machveropek Shmaim Haaretz. And we pick on the bottom of the page. Brachot Barot Me'ata V'Yarolam Baruch Ataranai El Melchadot Batishbachot El Odot Adon Niflaot Aboche B'Shirei Zimra Melech Chei Holam Yihim. And the Baruch Hu together. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. And Mecholam Yitzav Rachashech. Oseh Shalom Uvarei et HaKol. Praise you who creates the darkness and the light, creates peace and creates all that is. Amen. And El Adon. And we have this dance version. I've put this up before. Usually Murray is on. I didn't see him this Shabbat or last Shabbat, but if he's watching on Facebook.
גודלו וטובו מלא עולם, דעת ותבונה סובבים הודו.
אל אדון על כל המעשים ברוך ומבורך בפי כל הנשמה, גודלו וטובו מלא עולם, דעת ותבונה סובבים הודו. המתגאה על חיות הקודש ונדר בכבוד על המרכבה, זכות ומישור לפני כיסו, חסד ורחמים על לכבודו. טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו יצרם בדעת בבינה ובהשכל, כוח וגבורה נתן בהם להיות מושלים בקרב תבל. טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו יצר בדעת בבינה ובהשכל, כוח וגבורה נתן בהם להיות מושלים בקרב תבל. מלאים זיו ומפיקים נוג, גנאי סיבם בכל העולם, שמחים בצל
Okay. This, if anybody wants to, you can find it on YouTube, Chili 3 Rikudim or Rikudia. And the guy continues to teach the steps. If you want to try it at home, you're more than welcome. Eladon, right? Done to music. Right? We move our bodies as we pray. Notice, right? Jews move their bodies as they pray. The theme called to Atzmotai Tomana, all my bones shall proclaim, right? We're engaged in our bodies as we worship. We go ahead then. The vision of the angels giving their praise of God. They continue the bottom of the page I have up on the screen. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot Mecharetz Kevodo, Bofanim V'Chayot HaKodesh, Berash Kadom Mitnasim Domat Serafim, Tam Shabchim B'Yomim Baruch Adonai Mimekohomo, Mimekohomo, and we give thanks for the great lights as we conclude this section of the opening of the service dedicated to the transition from darkness to light. We move into the theme of love that we feel from having been given the Torah in Ava Rabbah, and then our obligation to love God in return in the Shema. So we join in Ava Rabbah. Turn on the microphones if you want and sing along with me. It's okay if we get the feedback. It doesn't matter. We want to feel that we're all together and join in. Sing along with me. Ava Rabbah Aftanu Adonai Eloheinu Em Gedola Vitae Aleinu Avinu Malkeinu Ba'avur Avoteinu Shebatchu Becha Avinu Malkeinu Batelamdem Chukechayim Ken Techaneinu Tlamdeinu Avinu Avarachaman Amrachem Rachem Aleinu Betein Beinu Lehavin Lehaskil Lishma Lilmod Lilamei Lishma Velasot Ulekayem Ekol Divrei Talmud Toratecha B'Ahava V'ha'ereneinu B'Toratecha B'dahabek Libeinu B'mitzvotecha V'yached levaveinu li'ahava u'lira'et shemecha v'lo nevosh le'olam va'ed v'lo nevosh le'olam va'ed ki v'shem kodshecha agadol v'anora b'atachnu Nagi love and Ismacha B'Shuvasecha V'Havienu L'Shalom Abba Kanfot Oretz Tolichenu Komemiot L'Atzeinu Yapayim Shalotavanu L'Chata Mikolam V'Lashon Keraftanu L'Shem Chagado Selah Selah Be'emet L'Hodot Lecha U'Yachecha B'Ahava Baruch Adonai we take the seat. We continue with the Shema. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Shema Yisrael Adonai Lecha Bechol Levavcha Ubechol Nafshecha Ubechol Meyadecha V'hayu Hadvarim Asher Anochi Mitzavecha Hayom Al Levavecha ושינמתם לבניך וליבם, בשבתך בביתך ולך בדרך, שפך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאויס על ידיך, ולטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Can you start the... Continue the bottom. Vayomer Adonai Moshe lemor daber el bnei Yisrael v'amata lehem v'sulem tzitzit al kanfei bigdeihem l'dorotam v'net no tzitzit al kanaf betil techelet lechem letzitzit uritem otos chatem ekol mitzvot Adonai v'asitem otam be'lo tatoru ha'arei levachem v'acherechem asher etem zonim achreihem למען תזכרו ועשיתם מכל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אדוני אלוהיכם אמת אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. And we continue the ending of the Shacharit, opening leading to the Amidah, with the expression of God's care in the form of the redemption in history, bringing the slaves to freedom, the past leading us to the future. The Lord le'ele yom borachom borach Moshe uvnei Yisrael lachanu shirab simcha rabba b'yom kulam mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai mi chamocha nedor b'kodesh norati Lord osef Shira Chadasha Shipur Geolim L'Shemcha Arsefatayaham Shira Chadasha Shipur Geolim Shemcha Arsefatayam Yachad Kulam Odu Yachad Kulam Odu V'Lechu V'Yam Adonai Yimloch Le'olam V'ed So Yisrael, Kumar Yazat Yisrael, Obdechinu Mecha Yehuda Yisrael, Goaleinu Adonai Shilot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch Adonai Yisrael. And now we come to the Amidah, and we do the opening together, and then silently. Bar Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Upi Yagit Tehilatecha Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Nara El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovi V'Kamnei Hakol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Yigel L'Bnei Bneihem L'Man Shemo B'Yahava Melech Ozer Moshe Magim Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham U'Chokei Tzara Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechai Meitim Atah Rav Moshiach Mashivarua Morid Agashem Mechakel Chaim Bechesed Mechayem Meitim Berachamim Rabim Shomech Nochlim Berofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Yishenei Afar Michamom Chava Geburot Umidom Elad Melech Meimid Umechayem Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'emonat L'chayot Meitim Baruch Adonai Mechayeh HaMeitim. Continue with the Kedusha. Nekadishim Chabalam Keshem Shema Kishmatum B'Shmei Maram K'tuv Ayan Nebiachar Karazel Zeveyom Kadosh 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 Adonai Tzivot U'Maretz Kevodo Az B'Kol Rash Gadol Adeh B'Chazak Mashmim Kol Et Nasim Lo Matzerafim Baruch Yomeinu Baruch Adonai B'Mekoho במקומך מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו כמלכתם אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון בקרבים ותשכון תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך לדור ודור ונצח נצחים יראינו תראנה תראנה מלכותך כדבר בשיר יוזך איזה בהמשך שככה יבלוך הנרבי אלוה מלך ציון תודו hallelujah. And now we're going to enter Finkelstein and
לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד קודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקיש, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד קודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקיש, ושבחך לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד קודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקיש. ברוך אתה האל הקדוש,
we continue silently.
ישמח מוישה ומתנת חלקו. שמרו בני ישראל.
Gonna bring us back for a phrase of Yismach Moshe, this one with Jamar. Okay, John Marr, fabulous voice of Moroccan Jewish music. And we continue now. Okay, to our unit of study, going on to Pirkei Avot. Let's go ahead. And this is the name of Rabbi Shimon. I'm going to assume it's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, but don't pin me on it. Rabbi Shimon says, Be careful with the reading of the Shema and the prayer. In other words, what does it mean be careful? The Shema is accepting the kingship of God. Tefillah means serving God. Avodah, serving God. So we have to focus on accepting kingship of God in order to be able to serve God. That's our goal as human beings. Right? So be careful about it. That's the key point. Obviously, in classic Jewish tradition, Jews were very careful in reading the Shema to be focused on it. And there's a great debate among the rabbis on the wedding night. Does one say the Kriyat Shema or not? Because one is too excited, you can't focus. And one of the rabbis said, well, I said Kriyat Shema on my wedding night. And the other says, you're not an example for us. You're off in your own world. We don't put you up as an example. But anyway, right? That's it. Shata mitpalel al taseh tfilat keva ela rachamim v'tachanim. When you do pray, do not make it keva, fixed. We asked the question, what is it fixed? But a request for mercy and grace in the presence of God. Ki chanun v'rachumhu, God is merciful and compassionate. Forgives one's and regrets to have to punish. Let's put it that way. So your prayer has to be heartfelt, right? We go through sometimes very mechanically. It's not just us, even the great rabbis sometimes rush through. So we don't want to stick to just what's in the text. The text is a guide for us. We want to add. As the rabbi said, as you pray, add in your own thoughts and your own prayers into it. That's it. Throw yourself into it. And then, this is very important, do not look at yourself as being wicked. All right? When we tell a child, one of the things we tell as educators to parents with children is, you don't want to say to the kid over and over again, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. Because the kid assumes, if I'm bad, I'm going to go do what I'm going to do. That's me. When we say the behavior is bad, the child can distinguish between me and the behavior. I can change the behavior. I don't have to change me, I have to change the behavior. This too, when we get down on ourselves and we assume that we are just no good, then we go and justify it. And that drags down our own actions, right? Our presuppositions about ourselves, and this in education, we know this. When we presuppose that we cannot make it because X, Y, or Z is against us, whatever it may be, that guarantees our failure. That's what we know in education with children. When children are brought up to presuppose they can tackle it. Not that they're great, but they can tackle the problem. They do achieve it. When they're brought with the supposition, even if it's subtle, that there are obstacles to the success, they will fall. Right? Very important. So, do not presuppose evil of yourself, because you're going to take it for granted. Okay, that is our unit of study. With that, go ahead with the Kaddish Rabbanan, and my dear Joe, Alexander, would you please lead us and have the Kaddish here?
Yiskadav v'yiskadash Shmei Rabbah.
Amen.
Kol mudibru choris v'yamlich malchutei b'echa yechon v'yamechem v'ais v'soy v'agala v'man karim v'imru Amen.
Amen.
Yehei Shmei Rabbah mavurach olam v'olma olmaya. Yisporach v'ishtabach v'ispuar v'slamam v'snaseh v'sadar v'salei v'salo Shmei Kodisha barichu. Eilam et kol berachata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata tamerom b'omo v'imru umay. Al Yisrael Rabbanon v'al Talmudayon al kol Talmudai al kol ma di v'rasa v'raisa di v'char rein di v'chol asar v'asar yehei luchon v'chon shlomo rav achinu v'chisu v'rachman chaim arichem v'zoinim v'rich v'kefinim Mein Klim Avasain Hoy Di Vasma Vara Amra Oman Yahei Shlomo Rabba Mitzmayim Chaim Tov Mulani Vakali Soa Bimra Oman Osa Shalom Bimra Mav Huya Say Shalom עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. And this brings us to Hollywood Temple Bethel, your local and international synagogue. And we welcome your support, as always. And now we come to opening our ark in our chapel, God willing, one day. Like the coming of the Messiah, we will be back in the chapel. Okay. Never give up.
No,
We
maybe
continue.
soon.
Yeah, if everybody's getting their shots and other herd immunity is building up between the two, I'm
Yeah.
hoping it's sooner rather than later. Let's join in together as we stand in front of our figurative ark. Ein kamocha
אין
b'Elohim
כמוך
Adonai,
באלוהים,
ein
אין
k'masecha,
כמעשיך,
malchut
מלכות
chamachot kol
ומלכות
olamim,
ומלכות,
umemshaltecha
ומשלתך
b'chol dor
בכל דור
v'ador,
ודור.
Adonai melech,
אדוני מולך,
Adonai
אדוני
malach,
ימלך,
Adonai
אדוני
yimloch
ימלך,
le'olam
לעולם
va'ed,
ועד.
Adonai
אדוני
oz
עוז
la'amo
לעמו
yitain,
ייתן.
Adonai
אדוני
yivarech,
יבורך
et
את
amo
עמו
b'shalom,
בשלום.
Avarachamim heitiva
היטיבה
b'tzoncha
בצאנך
et
את
Zion.
ציון.
Tivnei
תבנה
chomot
חומות
Yerushalayim.
ירושלים,
Tivnei chomot
תבנך
Yerushalayim.
ירושלים.
Ki
כי
v'cha
בך
levad
לבד
batachnu
בטחנו,
melech elam
לך
v'nisa.
לעולם ונישא.
Adon
אדון
olamim.
עולם,
Vahi ben Saron vayomer
ישראל
Moshe.
ויוזם
Kuma Adonai
אדוני
v'yachutzu
ויחוצו
oivecha.
אוהביך
Ve'anusu
וינוסו
nesanecha.
מפניך
Mipanecha. Ki
כי מציון
mitzion teitzei
תצא
Torah. Ki
כי
mitzion
מציון
teitzei
תצא
Torah. Udevar
ודבר
Adonai miYerushalayim.
מירושלים
Baruch
ברוך
shenatan Torah
שנתן תורה
Torah. Baruch
ברוך
shenatan
שנתן
Torah Torah.
תורה
Le'amo
לעמו
Yisrael.
ישראל
B'kedushato.
בריך שדמה עלמא.
We continue with the prayer in front of the ark.
Ve'anarachet
Lishmei
Lishmei
Kadisha,
Kadisha
Kadisha
Yishaya
Kira Ana Amatush Bechan. Be'anarachet, Lishmei
Lishmei
Kadisha,
Kadisha
Kadisha
Yakira
Yakira Ana Amatush Bechan.
Anoatush
Yehe Rabba Kahadama. B'tiftach libi be'oraita. Betashlim lishalim belibi b'lecholamath Yisrael. Letavo chayin belish laham. Amen. And we take out the figurative Torah from the ark. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Repeat.
Shema
Yisrael, Adonai
Yisrael
Eloheinu,
Adonai Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo Echad
Echad
Shemo
Eloheinu,
Gadol Adonai Kadosh Shemo.
Gadol
Gadol
Adonai
Adonai
Rahom Shemo Yachdav. Together Lecha Adonai Hagadol Hagevura Hatiferet Anetzach V'Hod Ki Chova Shamayim U'Haaretz Ki Chova Shamayim U'Haaretz Adonai Amam Lacha V'Mitnaseh L'Chol Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Ve'ishtachavu L'Adam Raglav Kadoshu Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Ve'ishtachavu L'Adam Raglav Kadoshu Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. And we come to our Torah reading. We actually have two Torah readings today. First, the main portion, Ki Tisa, and then the special reading for this Shabbat, Shabbat Parah. I'll explain that in a second. But this reading, famous, we are in the midst of the golden calf. Moses, everything is fine and dandy from the 10 Commandments through the last two portions. They get instructions to create a beautiful tabernacle. Everything is ready. They are told how to collect the funds for the maintenance of this tabernacle. All very nice and good. And Moses says, okay, I'm going up. You know the story. wait for me 40 days. I'll be back with all the Ten Commandments and all the instructions and so on. And what do they say as we come right here? Ki boshesh Moshe. The people see that Moses is boshesh, slow. He's not showing up when he's supposed to. It's not that he disappeared, it's just he's a little bit late, boshesh. And the rabbis come and say, Moses said 40 days, but he didn't say exactly when during the 40 days. And as the 40th day goes on, they're getting nervous. And so some of the rabbis say, boshesh is really beshesh. As they get into the 6th hour of the 40th day, they're really getting worried. The 12 hours in the daylight left, right? 6 hours left of daylight. It's going to be the next day. Wait a minute, what happened to Moses? Right? So we don't know. Right? Kuma say, Elohim, make us God that will go in front of us, because this Moses man, he took us out of Egypt, but we don't know what's happening to him. So the question rabbis ask is, what do they really want? Are they looking for a new God? Or are they looking to a new Moses? Or they just want something that they can physically grasp? So if they're looking for a new God, what Aaron says to them is, this is Adonai Eloheinu. When the calves come out, this is Adonai Eloheinu. So he's telling him, you don't need a new God. This calf represents God. And they're happy. They have something they can look onto. Or is it, Moses is gone, we're scared. We need somebody that we can hold on to visible. Why didn't they go to Aaron and say, Aaron, you're our leader? All right, so maybe they're not really looking for the leader. They need, instead, this is what I think the rabbis come to the conclusion. What's behind this is the need for a physical, visible representation of God. And so later on, you'll see that when the instructions come to make the ark is left empty except with the tablets, words. No picture, but words. Later on, those words, the tablets, disappear when the temple is rebuilt. There is no tablet anymore. The ark is empty. When the Roman general, Ptolemy, marches into Rome around the year 80 before the year 0, takes over the government. He walks into the temple to look for the great gold that the Jews have stashed, and he opens up the ark, and there's nothing. And he's very upset. The Romans think the Jews are atheists. You have to have a physical representation of your God in order to have the presence of God, right? So this is the fight. We're breaking away from a physical presentation of God. Right? One of the arguments that Jews have with Christianity is that in envisioning God in Jesus, they're stuck with a physical representation, right? Now, we can debate it back and forth. This is really what it means and so on. But that was one of our great arguments with Christianity. Is this?
Rabbi,
yeah.
Could it be that Moses did not assert his leadership yet, and there was some kind of different groups, and then after he returns and the Aaron, and the group with the cow somehow represented another group, and then there was a big battle within the Israelites, and Moshe and the Levites were able to assert themselves as leaders, more or less, after this big fight.
There's a political element to it, yeah. Moses, and you'll see later on, not so much in Exodus, not so as in Numbers. This constant tension between Moses and different groups all the way through. Yeah. The Levites, remain as the loyal ones to Moses, and you'll see that then that priesthood then is guaranteed to the Levites. The priesthood and the control of the Mishkan is given over to the Levites very clearly, because they're loyal to the revolution. And there's also the accusation that is underlying, and it's repeated many places in the Torah, of the Asuf Rav, the Eruv Rav being the mixed multitude. It's not just the tribes of Israel that come out, but a lot of Egyptians come along with them. And it's an opportunity to get on the bandwagon and go along. And so the accusation is made that it's not our guys, it's their guys that cause the trouble. The other ones. Barbara's not here. Barbara Drata. She has this beautiful little line. So why was Moses angry? Why? Because he went down from the mountain and saw the people dancing with a cow. Right?
Yeah.
We know that the cow image appears in the land of Israel. Where does it appear in the land of Israel? When the northern kingdom breaks away from the southern kingdom, the rebel king Yerovam establishes two sanctuaries, one in the south of the kingdom and one all the way in the north, Dan, and establishes there two golden calves, one in each one. And the language he uses is very similar to the language of Aaron. Elo Elohecha Yisrael. These are your gods, O Israel. Plural, being very understandable because Elohim is used as a plural verb with a single intent. So he's grammatically correct, both Aaron and Jeroboam, to mean one God, but he's using the calf as a physical representation, right? So it's the idea of trying to have what is angering is not just the idea there's another God, but there's an attempt to have a physical representation of God. I think that is then the key element. Now, also in this, you'll see, we'll get into the special maftir for today. The red heifer is also a calf. And red is also sometimes used as a term for gold, in a sense. If you ever see, there's something what's called red gold, sometimes called Mexican gold, and it is a different alloy. So the gold has a reddish tone to it. So the red heifer might be indicating reddish in the sense of a golden colored calf. That is used for purification. So there is this metaphor, some rabbis see, between the golden calf and he's burnt into, right? The calf is melted and burned down, and then they have to drink the ashes, right? And this heifer who's burnt down, and the ashes are sprinkled on the people who are impure. The sense of here, this is the symbol now to replace the idol of the calf with the offering of this calf. So there's that parallel. All right, with that, we're going to go into the reading. Joe Elder, if you'll do the blessings for us, and then Joe Younger, you'll do the reading, please.
Baruch Hu es Adonai HaMavorach.
Baruch HaNevarach Lemoed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch L'Olam Voed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher b'chabonu mekal Amim. V'natan lanu es Toruso. Baruch Atu Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Go ahead.
Amen. Sorry.
B'nei Vein.
I was starting at the wrong. It's okay.
B'nei Uvein, B'nei Yisrael.
ויתן אל משה ככלתו לדבר איתו בהר סיני, שני לוחות העדות, לוחות אבן כתובים, באצבע אלוהים. וירא העם כי בושש משה לרדת מן ההר, ויקהל העם על הארון, ויאמרו אליו, קום, עשה לנו אלוהים אשר ילכו לפנינו, כי זה משה האיש, אשר העלנו מארץ מצרים, לא ידענו מה היה לו. ויאמר אליהם אהרון, פרקו נזמי הזהב אשר באוזני נשיכם, בניכם ובנותיכם, והביאו אלי, ויתפרקו כל העם את נזמי הזהב אשר באוזניהם, ויביאו אל אהרון, ויקח מידם, ויצר אותו בחרת, ויעשו אל גל מסכה, ויאמרו, אלה אלוהיך, ישראל, אשר העלוך מארץ מצרים. וירא אהרון, ויבן מזבח לפניו, ויקרא אהרון, ויאמר חג לאדוני מחר, וישכימו ממחרת ויולו עולות, ויגישו שלמים, וישב העם לאכול ושתו, ויקומו לשחק. וידבר אדוני אל משה, לך רך, כי שחט עמך אשר העלית מארץ מצרים. סרו מהר מן הדרך אשר ציוויתם, עשו להם עגל מסכה, וישתחוו לו, ויזבחו לו, ויאמרו, אלה אלוהיך ישראל אשר העלוך מארץ מצרים. ויאמר אדוני אל משה, ראיתי את העם הזה, והנה עם קשה עורף הוא. ועתה הניחה לי, ויחר אפי בהם, ואכלם, ואעשה אותך לגוי גדול. ויחל משה את פני אדוני אלוהיו, ויאמר למה אדוני יחרה אפיך בעמך, אשר הוצאת מארץ מצרים בכוח גדול וביד חזקה.
Okay. Tודה rabba.
Sure.
Okay. One thing, very lovely aside, Aaron tells the men, bring all the gold jewelry, yours, your wives, your children. And the way it is worded, the rabbis say, is that it's the men bring their jewelry, but not the women. And they interpret from this that the women wanted nothing to do with this act of rebellion. They were the pious ones. It was the women who were the pious ones in Egypt who insisted on continuing having children, not the men. And so as a reward, the Rosh Chodesh is considered a woman's holiday. Women did not work, well, at least not all day, but half a day off on Rosh Chodesh. I think you don't hear about it in many sources because the men did not like having the wives have the day off, but that's grounded in Jewish law. Half a day off on Rosh Chodesh for every Jewish woman. So she gets all the holidays the men get off, plus you add it up, it's 6 extra days in a year. Okay. We go ahead now with our blessing for those who are ill. There we go. Let's see what happened to it. There we go. Misha Berach, Chavateinu, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, David, Shlomo, Sarif, Karachev, Leah. May the Holy One who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Becca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal the following: Esther Elisheva, Pinchas Petroskovsky, Miriam Leodorf, Yatzad Ben Galina, Moisey Kelchik, Mindy Levins-Pfeiffer, Jennifer Levins, Ronnie Duran, Harriet Levins, Moisey Ben Manya, Barbara Mormon, Esther Gerson, Jeffrey Buck, Avigdor Raphael Ben Yitzchak, Vitzvia, Vincent Weiss, son of Heather Bergerson, Joe Alexander, Robert Drato, Roger Rosen, Rachel Flalo, Jennifer Drato, Michael Schinder, Susan Tuckman, Shirley Marco, Fira Feinberg, Judy Alkali, Richard Zeller, Leiben Masha Ben Sarah, son of Harvey Jason, and the mother of Cantor, Isaac Bodai, Miriam Bat Yitzchak Bechanum, Liva Batsara, Chana Batsara, Eliyahu Ben Chana, Herb Mormon, Irina Hasepian, Shoshana Batsara, Chana Sarah Leah Bat Rachel, Chana Sarah Bat Kaila Alta, Alan Whalen, Hayar Nesti, Sophie, the friend of Judy Alkali, and all those who are afflicted by the COVID-19 virus. And please give me names of people you want to add.
Sima Harlev.
Sima Harlev.
Ron and Ter Harlev.
Ron Harlev.
Susan Feinberg.
Susan Feinberg.
Sharon Lipman.
Sharon Lipman.
Esther Vatsiva.
Esther Vatsiva.
Laban Moshe Ben Sarah.
Laban Moshe Ben Sarah.
Shalom Ben Alazer.
Shalom Ben Alazer.
Thaddeus Ben Abraham Shimon.
What is the name again?
Thaddeus
Ben Shimon Abraham.
Shimon. Olga Bat Simcha.
Olga Bat Simcha,
Emily Bat Sarah,
Emily Bat Sarah,
Douglas Ben Abraham.
Douglas Ben Avram,
Ronald Rothman,
Ronald Rothman,
Tito and Gabi Gorodisha.
Tito and Gary Gorichov,
Rachel Bat Ventura.
Rachel Bat Ventura,
Wendy Keller.
Wendy Keller. Okay, and all those in need of healing. We pray Hakadosh Baruch Hu yishlach lehem refuah shlema, refuat nefesh, refuat haguf. Shabbat himel azok hashavah karibim. Amen.
Amen.
Send them healing both in body and mind, speedily to them and to the whole house of Israel. Let us say Amen.
Amen.
We have a beautiful rendition. This is coming out of San Diego Jewish Men's Choir. A variation on the Mishabach prayer.
Mi shebeirach avotenu Avraham, Yitzchak veYaakov. Mi shebeirach emotenu Sarah, Rivka, Leah, v'Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, 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 and bless us as well, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Mi shebeirach avotenu Avraham, Yitzchak veYaakov. Mi shebeirach emotenu Sarah, Rivka, Leah, v'Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, 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 and bless us as well. Hear our prayer, 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 and bless us as well.
We come to briefly to the Maftir reading. I'm just going to read the first few lines. It is from Chukat. It is instructions to take a para adumat tmima, a pure red heifer. I was pleased to say that during the summer, I saw what a pure red heifer is. There's a farm north of LA County that's open to families to come and visit. You pick your own produce, take the little ones, and the old ones can be little ones also. And they have one section with some farm animals. And I was looking there, and there's a red heifer, pure red. And I said, my gosh, well, maybe it was a bull from the horns, but either or, pure red, I've never seen it before. They come out of Scotland, this particular breed. And indeed, that's it. So now we know. I guess they got Scottish. They came down from Scotland in the time of the temple. I don't know. Or maybe they went up. Anyway, it really exists. And the red meaning, not necessarily red, but a reddish color to the hair. The rabbi said, well, it needs to be pure Masa, not a single miscolored hair in it, no defect, perfect animal. And this would be sacrificed in the offering. The ashes would then be used to sprinkle as a symbol of purification. The rabbis rationalize it and say it is not the heifer that does the action of purification. It is that in enacting the will of God that one finds purification. God has set up this as a ceremony for purification. It is by going through that we indicate, we accept the rule of God. By doing that, we find our purification. Not that the heifer does anything in particular. Classic rabbinic rationalization of what would seem to be a mystic act. So there we have our red heifer. The reason we read it is that we are just a few weeks short of Pesach. And that being so, we have to get ready, and we go ahead. And one of the steps is that everybody has to be cleansed and purified for the Seder. So the red heifer is very essential. I want to check my schedule. That read not. Yeah, okay, yeah. We don't have Rosh Chodesh yet. It's coming up, though, the following weekend. Good. So, just the first few lines. V'arebeinu Moshe v'Aaron lemor, zot chukat haTorah shetzivanu lemor, daber b'nei Yisrael v'yikchu elecha para aduma tmima she'en ba mum asher lo ala aleh ol tatem ota el Elazar kohen v'tzi otam el michutz lemachane v'shchat ota lifanav kach Elazar kohen midama be'etzbo Yisrael nochach b'nei Ohel Moed midama sheva pa'amim saraf et para linav et Torah b'bsara v'edama pirsha saraf. ולקח לכן עץ ארז אזוב שני ותולעת והשליך על תוך שרפת הפרה כיבס בגרב הכהן ורחץ בשר במים אחר יבוא אל מחנה וטמא הכהן עד הערב. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead then. We've already done the prayer for the country. We're going to go ahead just with the selection from the Haftarah, which is from Yechezkel, Ezekiel, and it ties in the sense of purification with this particular Torah reading of the purification. Children of Israel are steeped in impurity. They have been punished and sent into exile. God will redeem them, however, and he says, and I will sprinkle upon them the waters of purification. And finally, they will come back in a big flood like a herd of animals coming up, like the big flock. It will be a flock of humans coming back to the land of Israel. That is the tie-in with our Torah. So I'm just going to start here. וידבר אדוני לאמור, בן אדם בית ישראל יושבים על אדמתם ויטמאו אותה בדרכם ועלייתם כטומאת הנידה הייתה דרכם לפניי ואשפוך חמתי עליהם על הדם אשר שכבו אל הארץ בגילוליהם טמאוה ואפיץ אותם בגויים ויזהרו בארצות כדרכם כעלילותם שפטים ואל הגויים אשר באו שם יהללו את שם קודשי באמור להם עם אדוני אלה מארצו יצאו ואחמול על שם קודשי אשר אלוהו בית ישראל בגויים אשר באו שמה. I'm just going to go ahead to the ending for the last lines. We always end with lines of hope. Ko amar Adonai Elohim od zot edresh lebeit Yisrael lasot lahem arbe otam ketzon adam ketzon kedoshim ketzon Yerushalayim b'moada kein tien harim acharibot meleot tzon adam yadu ki ani Adonai. As Jerusalem is filled with sacrificial sheep during the festivals, so shall the ruined cities be filled with flocks of people, and they shall know that I am the God, I am the Lord. So that is a Haftarah reading of hope and expectation. We go ahead with the prayer for the country and the prayer for Israel. And bring up our dear old favorite here, Irving Berlin, with God bless.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and through the night with a light from the mountains to the prairies to the ocean. white with foam. God bless
America,
my
home, sweet home.
God bless America. And God bless Israel, land of our ancestors, and the people of Israel, our brothers and sisters. We pray, Avinu Sheba Shamayim, Tzo Yisrael V'galo, Barech et Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Tzmechat Kulatenu, Hagen Aleha Bevra Chazdecha, Ufros Aleha Sukat Shalomecha, Tachacha V'Amitcha, Asher Sareh V'Tzeha, Taknem B'Eitzah Tova B'Eitzah Tova, strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Avinu Sheba Shamayim, deliver them and crown them with triumph. Avinu Sheba Shamayim, so Yisrael V'Galo. Bless our land with peace, O God. Inhabit us with lasting joy, and let us say, and let us say, Amen. Avinu Sheba Shamayim, so Yisrael V'Galo, Barech et Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Tzmechat Kulatenu, Hagen Aleha Bevra Chazdecha, Ufros Aleha Sukat Shalomecha, V'nomar Amen. Amen. And we continue now. You turn the Torah to the Ark. Hallelujah. Shem Adonai. Kinas Gavshem. Hold Eretz V'Shamayim. Vayarem Keren Le'amot Tehila Lecho Chatzhi Dahav Livnei Yisrael Am Kerov. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai b'nei Avul Adonai Kavos, Avul Adonai Kavod Shema, Ishtach Avul Adonai B'Adar, Mayim Ekvadirim, Adonai Mayim Rabim, Kol Adonai B'Akach, Kol Adonai B'Adar, Kol Adonai Shomer Arazim, V'Shaber Adonai Etazeh Havonon. V'yakirim k'mega b'siryon k'mo v'neimim. Kol Adonai chotzei l'avotesh. Kol Adonai yachim midbar. Yachil Adonai mimakadesh. Kol Adonai yachol l'yalot. Tov yaharot v'yachol kulo me'akavod. Adonai lamavon ya'osha v'yeshev Adonai melech le'olam. Adonai oz le'amo yitein. Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom. Turn the church to the Ark. Ki lekach tov natati lachem tohorati al tazovu eitz chayim hi lama chazikim ba v'tom cheha me'ushar deracheha yacheinu am v'chol netivoteha shalom ashi beinu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. And now we go on with Enkel Eloheinu. Sing along. Continue with the Alena together. Alena the Shabbat Lada on Hakol, Lo take you to the Yotzei Breshit, Kelos and Gay Haratzot, Los Amanu Mishpachot Adama, Kelos Am Chakenu Kahem, Vigor Alenu Kechol Hamonam, Anachnu Korim, Mishnachavim, Omodim, Lifnei Melech, Machem Lachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Keuna Teshamayim Yosed Aretz, Moshe Mikara Bashamayim Mimal, Oshchina Tuzah, Oshchina Tuzah, Begave Meherami, Eloheinu Ein Od, Memachenu Avesulato, Kakatu Betorato, Yadata Yom Vashivota Elevavecha, Aki Adonai, Elohim, Vashamayim Mimal, Yalaretz, Mitachat Einod, Venema, Haya Adonai, Lemelech Hakol Haaretz, Vayamahu Yeh Adonai Echad, Ushemo Echad. Okay, and we recall those who passed away in the year gone by. Elenit Bat Yitzchak, the mother of Dr. Isaac Norman, Harry Kyle, and Davis Wenkert, Jack Petsko, and those who passed away from COVID-19 virus. And
Rachel Millman.
Rachel Millman?
Yeah.
Okay, we add her name to our thoughts. Anyone else have anyone? Go ahead then. And we continue with the Kaddish D'Rabbanan. I have up on the screen. Yitkadal, Yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, Yama Divra Chilutei, Yamlich Malchutei, B'chayachon v'yamichon v'chayi l'chol Beit Yisrael, V'galav Zman Kariv Yimru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabban Barach Le'olam U'Maya, Yibarach v'Yishtabach, V'Yipa'ar v'Tumam v'Yitnaseh, V'Yitadar v'Yitadeh v'Yithalal Shemei Likud Shaberichu, Leila Mikol Birchata v'Shirata, Dush B'chata v'Nechmata, Davion Be'alma v'Yimru Amen. Yehi Shlomo Rabban Shemaya, Chaim Tovim Aleinu v'Akoyse v'Yomein, Ose Shalom Bimramav, Huyase Shalom Aleinu v'Akoyse v'Yimru Amen. Amen. And now, again, Hollywood Temple Bethel, your sponsor, your local and international shul, and we welcome your support. Paper, cash, plastic, online at PayPal, temple@htbl.org. Okay, there's our
Rabbi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Rabbi.
Go ahead.
I wanted to add my mother's name, Hana Rachel Bat Miradina.
Oh, this is your mother's yahrzeit?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hana Rachel Bat
Miradina.
Okay, may her memory be for a blessing. May so be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Amen.
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 Amen. And we're going to wrap up now with Adon Olam.
Adon Olam.
And this one is for, okay, Barbara Mormon, where are you? Right, Adon Olam by a famous Jewish composer. Sorry, what's his name? Simon and Garfunkel. There we go. Got it. There's Adon Olam.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Amen.
Nice rendition for us. Okay.
Thank
so
you,
we're gonna do-
Rabbi. That was great.
sorry. I had you in mind. Okay. Gonna do a stop share. On the screen 1 second. I'm gonna close down some of these windows so they don't mess us up. I just get in the way. Clean out my screen here a little bit. Give me 1 second. That way. It's one less thing. So now we're going to go stop share so we can see you. Hold on. Okay, everybody, we have a nice crowd here this Shabbos morning, and we have several others on Facebook itself. And this week, next week, and the following week, we're going to discuss some very unusual Jewish thinkers from the Middle Ages and their impact and their message. So next week we'll be at Barcelona, and also a book attributed to him on Jewish sex. Is there such a thing? We'll find out. So that'll intrigue a lot of people. That takes us right up to Pesach, which is March 27th. So that's Shabbat morning. I'm going to keep a very simple Shabbat service because people are rushing to get the seders ready and so on. It's the first time that, if you're vaccinated or if you know who you're having your seder with, you can get together. And if the weather's nice, you can do it outside, you can do it indoors if you're all safe and shot up properly. And the next Shabbat after that will be 7th day Pesach. Yizkor is usually the 8th day, which will be a Sunday. Given the logistics, what I'm going to suggest is that we do our Yizkor on Shabbat itself, the 7th day, which is the way it's done in Israel, where they only do one day of the festival and first and last. So I'm just putting that up, heads up for us. Okay, with that, I'm going to go back to share screen and a warm up, because I'm playing a guess who for us today. I am not telling you who I'm talking about. I'm going to give you hints and talk about the mystery of how come nobody knew who this was. So you're going to have to figure it out with the hints I give you. Okay. So here's my first hint. It is a musical hint. By Esther Ofarim. This is a poem by this mystery personality. Oh, I just gave it away. Okay, I'll just give away. You didn't see that opening, okay? Mystery personality. Ani Hasa, I am the government minister.
אני כינור לכל שרים ונוגנים ושירי קטרה למלכים קטרה למלכים ומגנד בראשי הסגנים והנני ב16 שנותיי בליבי בן כלב בן ה80 אני כינור לכל שרים ונוגנים ושירי קטרה למלכים קטרה למלכים ומגנד בראשי הסגנים ב16 שנותיי בליבי בן כלב בן ה80
So this mystery figure, he's only 16 as he's writing this poem, as you see, but he feels like he's 80. The weight of the world is on him, and he is the music instrument for the songs of praise of the wise men and the powerful. So let's find out something about this character. Who is this? That, as I said, this is my mystery figure. Okay, we're going to find out my mystery figure. All right. Last few sessions we spoke about a Ramban. Spent a lot of time on him because he was just such an overwhelming personality. But there were other equally overwhelming personalities who took a different position, either before him or around this time or shortly after, in advance of or in reaction to. So it'll be this mysterious Avisabron, Rabbi Yehuda Levi, and Nachmanides. So here are the three figures. So who is this mystery Avisabron? Sounds like, I don't know, sounds like some European name. So in the Middle Ages, the great European philosophers were very heavily influenced by him. Now, I get into this by saying that many years ago, I was a student living in Jerusalem. I went to Yom Kippur services in a Yemenite synagogue. And just as Musaf ended, that's when we take our break to go out and shmooze and unwind. No, they kept on going. And they started with a section of prayers that I'd never heard of before. And I looked into the machzor, I was surprised to realize they were chanting from an astronomy textbook. It was written as poetry, but it was a discussion of astronomy, nevertheless. So I asked, what on earth was this book on astronomy? What is that doing with Yom Kippur? So I'm going to tell you the story behind it. So this is our mystery philosopher. He's the author of what is known as Fons Vitae, who is known among the Europeans as Avisabron. So Fons Vitae is a great masterpiece of philosophy. It is the Latin term, as it's translated into Latin, the fountain or the source of life. And as I said, he's labeled as Avisabron. Now, this is like the famous story about who really wrote Shakespeare. Did Shakespeare write Shakespeare? Who is this Avisabron? Because nobody ever shows up anywhere with that name in any source. So we start with this book. What was this book? You see this beautiful illustration here. It's an etching that is in one of the printed editions, early editions of his work, and you can see mineral and vegetable life, stars and the moon, the sun, and a fountain, mysterious fountain of life. So it is a dialogue between master and disciple, and it gets its name from the fact that it considers matter and form as the basis of existence and the source of life in everything created. Okay, translated from Arabic. For those who are Arabists, the original title, Yanbu al-Hayat, something a fountain into the life, a fountain of life is pretty close to that. And in the year 1150, the Archbishop Raymond of Toledo asked for it to be translated into Latin because they were very impressed by his teachings. And scholars later on recall and record his importance in the history of philosophy. He's known through citations, for example, in Aquinas in his books. So, and in others. And so what's this Fons Vitae? It is that all created beings are constituted of form and matter, or in medieval philosophy, extension and matter. This is basically philosophy up till the 18th century, 19th century even. And this is true of the physical world. I'm going to ignore reading the Latin for you. I tried to translate with my high school Latin in Google. So corporeal substances, or compound substances, where there are multiple entities, and also spiritual world, which also has a substance to it, but it's a simple entity rather than a compound entity. So that all existence has a physical presence as well as within it. All right, there is then the first substance, which is God, the God above all, then substance, matter, that supports 9 categories, broken down into 9 categories. And matter and form are always and ever in relationship of forbearing, aiding, and substratum of property. All right, so much for the philosophical terms. Basically what we're saying, or he's saying, is unlike Maimonides, that there is matter, the material world, and the spiritual world, two are completely separate. He is saying that the matter and the spiritual are actually one, that the spiritual also has a form and a substance to it. Spinoza will pick up from this and say that all is God, pantheism, all is God. Okay, so that's the key point. This idea that there is a matter that expands through the universe also continues until the end of the 19th century, with the question of how is light spread, and the presumption is that there is a matter called ether through the universe, through which light is able to spread, until the famous experiments that led to Einstein's theories, which showed that there was nothing there. Okay, whole different problem. Okay, so what's his impact? Well, the main influence on what is called scholasticism. It's a medieval school of philosophy. It was a method of analysis, dialogue, a particular method of dialogue. And it dominated medieval universities from 1100 to 1700. This is a method of thinking and analysis until the beginnings of the modern era. So look in the Christian world. It is impossible to understand philosophy of the 13th century without understanding Fons Vitae and its influence. He was considered to be a Christian philosopher, and a source of great debate between the Franciscans and the Dominicans. The Franciscans, as a school of thought in the Catholic Church, Platonists in their thinking, led by Duns Scotus, who backed this Fons Vitae completely, and the Dominicans, led by Albertus Magnus and Thomas Aquinas, who were influenced by Aristotle. And they were very concerned. They saw too much influence from this Arabic, maybe the spectrum of being Jewish philosopher or Christian doctrine, right? Big fight back and forth because of him. So he's translated into Latin. His ideas are incorporated into the teachings of these great philosophers. William of Oran refers to him definitely as a Christian, and he is unicus omnium philosophantium nobilissimus, the noblest, the most unique and noblest of all philosophers. Look at that praise that he gets. And this universality of matter appears in Duns Scotus, who brings this idea from Fons Vitae, the materiality of spiritual substances. And it goes on into Christian philosophy, influences later philosophers down to Giordano Bruno, talks about the Moor, Avisabron. So he knows he's not a Christian, he knows he's a Moor, North African, which means he must be Muslim Arab. Bruno is important for those of us who study science because he is the Catholic priest who got in trouble with the church because he backed Copernicus. The universe, the sun is at the center of the universe, not the earth. Okay, so go ahead. So now we come to the question, right? Who is that mass philosopher? It was unraveled in 1846. The Jewish scholar Solomon Monk, who himself is a very interesting and peculiar character, a tremendous thinker in his own right. So he discovered in the Bibliothèque Nationale, National Library of France, Paris, Hebrew manuscripts. He saw work by Shem Tov Palquera. And in it, he had manuscripts in Hebrew. And as he read the manuscripts in Hebrew, he recognized the translation or the original of a Latin manuscript of the Fons Vitae, of Avisabron, word for word. And then he realized, based on the language and that this was based on the Arabic original. So the Fons Vitae, the Hebrew was a translation, the Arabic was a translation. And he was the one who proved that then this Avisabron, or Vansabrol, who was presumed always to be a Christian scholar, was the Jewish scholar Ibn Gvirol. So here's a sample of that manuscript that he had found, one of the pages from this Shem Tov Palquera. Well, now how did we get to who is this Ibn Gvirol? Right? You saw the poem? She had a giveaway. She was singing a poem from Ibn Gvirol when he was 16, the song that I introduced. So he is the great Spanish poet, philosopher, and moralist, born in Malaga, Spain, around 1021, died around 1058 in Valencia, and didn't live a long time. He's practically a contemporary of Rashi. And Rashi is so powerful for us, but Rashi has no clue about philosophy. They're not, distance-wise, maybe 500 miles apart, but in terms of the philosophical levels, Rashi, for all his brilliance, had no clue about this kind of thinking. That's the difference between the Ashkenazic and the Sephardic world at this time. It is called by Gretz the Jewish Plato, and another scholar, the most original philosopher among the Jews and the Arabs. Between the Jews and the Arabs, the most original. It was more original than Maimonides, he would say. So how do we get Avisabron? Well, his name is Shlomo Ibn Gvirol. Ibn Gvirol, Ibn Gebirol, Aven Gebirol, Aven Gebrol, Aven Sebrol, Avisebrol, Avisebron. You see how, like broken telephone, you ever play the game? You whisper a word in somebody's ear and it goes around the circle and another message comes out completely. That's with his name. So we know relatively little about Ibn Gvirol himself. His parents died while he was a child. You saw the poem he wrote, that song, 16, the age of 16. By 20, he wrote a major Hebrew grammar, alphabetic acrostic, 400 verses divided into 10 parts. Man was a major linguist. Father, we may say, the father of the revival of correct Hebrew. Wrote attacks on other peoples and broke away from the concept of the piyut as we knew it and renewed Hebrew poetry as poetry, using the kinds of poetry now beginning to come into the Middle East and the Mediterranean world and into the Renaissance, into Europe. So he was a cantankerous character, perhaps. He was getting in trouble with a lot of authorities. So he was wandering from place to place. From Malaga, he ended up in Valencia and several other places in between. And so he died relatively young. You see 1058 or 1059, maybe about, 30 years at most, right? Very young, but brilliant. That's the price of brilliance. So here, Malaga, they set up a statue in his honor. The most excellent city hall erected this plaque for the 900th anniversary of Ibn Gvirol, poet and philosopher from Malaga. right? And here, very pensive figure. And then in Caesarea today, in Caesarea today in Israel, a beautiful statue of him, Ibn Gvirol. This one a much more formalized posture. This one much more pensive. I think as artwork goes, this one's a more intriguing one. Reminds me of Dante's statue in Florence. So, what's his importance then? His importance. Ibn Gvirol was the first teacher of Neoplatonism in Europe. In terms of his importance, this from the Encyclopedia Judaica, Jewish encyclopedia of a century ago, one of the greatest works done with great scholars. And so the author says, Philo, we go back to the first real Jewish philosopher, Philo of Alexandria. He orientalized European philosophy, took the Greek philosophy, and he gave it a Jewish flavor. And that was the foundation of Christianity. 1,000 years later, Gvirol occidentalized the Greco-Arabic philosophy. He took that which now the Arabs had taken from the Greeks and occidentalized it. He neutralized it, gave it a form that would make it universal. So he says what's interesting is that the teachings of both Philo and Gvirol were ignored by us Jews, but they exerted a considerable circle, Philo in the establishment of Christianity and Gvirol upon the philosophies of medieval Christianity. So what is interesting is that Gvirol in his writings, he did not see philosophy as a handmaid of theology, which was classic medieval thinking, but philosophy was philosophy, and his philosophic work is absolutely pure philosophy without any theology in it. So there are no quotes from rabbis, no quotes from the Bible, not even a single word or phrase that is a rabbinic phrase. And that's why Jews didn't read him, also because they were going to Aristotle in their influences, but why the Christians or the Arabs could accept him, because it was so completely neutral. So completely neutral. So he wrote some other things. He wrote a very important ethical treatise, a treatise on the improvement of moral qualities. His contemporaries or later rabbis talked about him. Rabbi Solomon the Little Hakatan spread such a fragrance of song as was never produced by any poet either before or after him. The poets who succeeded him strove to learn from his poems. They were unable to reach even the dust of his feet as regards the power of his figures and the force of his words. If he had lived longer, he would surely have accomplished wonderful things in poetry, but it was snatched away when still young. His light was extinguished before he had completed his 30th year. Imagine that. Here's a man, he's influencing world philosophy, and he's not even 30. So those of you who came on right at the beginning of the service, I had somebody singing this. It is found in the Conservative Prayer Book, the 1980 edition. It is the one that we have in our benches in the synagogue. The New Lev Shalem, I did not see it in there, but they introduced it as part of the Shacharit. And this was Shachar Vakeshcha Tzuri Miskavi. So if you were here at the beginning, or you go back to Facebook or YouTube, you can go back and you can hear the singer singing and actually with hand motions enhancing upon the song in a very Spanish style. At the dawn I seek you, refuge rock sublime. So let's look at this book that surprised me when I walked into the synagogue on Yom Kippur to find Jews singing astronomy. So he, as a philosopher, was forgotten among Jews. Didn't know that he was a philosopher. But the poet was very much alive and very much copied. And this Keter Malchut basically is taking his philosophy and putting into poetic form, a Hebrew poetic form of some of the ideas that are in his philosophy Fons, Vitae, Fountain of Life. So it's a philosophical and ethical hymn in rhymed prose. It describes the universe as composed of spheres, one within the other. A hymn of glory of God, both the material and spiritual world, combined with ethical and religious thoughts. As I say, it is part of the Yom Kippur liturgy, also in not just the Yemenite Jews, but also many Sephardic communities. This is a fragment of manuscript, handwritten copy of one of the phrases. Okay, I'm not going to try to read it. It's very hard, but here is another manuscript, an illuminated manuscript. We're getting to the later Middle Ages, nice copy work, and you can see they had more luxury of illustrating them beautifully. So now, here from a printed machzor, early printed machzor, 5413 makes it about 350 years ago. And those of you who know Spanish, Orden de Rosh Hashanah y Kippur, right? The order of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, traducido en español, translated into Spanish with new commentaries, and Keter Malchut is in it, right? Make a point. Y otras cosas. Okay, so as I say, 350 years ago would put us at 1650. About. Well, so I'm going to give you an example of his Hebrew language and then just go quickly through some sections out of his beautiful Keter Malchut. You can see I've highlighted in yellow the parts that rhyme. So you can see it has a refrain that goes through Ata Echad, Ata Echad, Ata Echad, Ata Echad, right? So he's repeating an opening introduction. Then he has two stanzas, each one rhyming. So it's Ata Echad, Rosh Kol Minyan, Yesod Kol Binyan. You see the An. There are one, the first of every number, foundation of every structure. Then Ata Echad, Yesod Achdutcha Hachmelev Yitmahu, Ki Lo Yadu Mahu, right? Who and who. Thou art one, and the mystery of thy oneness, the wise of heart are struck dumb, for they know not what it is. Ata Echad, V'Achdutcha Lo Yigra V'Lo Yosif, Lo Yachsar V'Lo Ya'adif, right? If, rhyming. Thou art one, thy oneness shall never be increased nor lessened, it lacketh not, nor doth aught remain over. And continuing, Ata Echad, Lo Ki Echad HaKanui V'Amanui, Lo Yisigucha Ribui V'Shinui, V'Lo Tar V'Lo Kinui. Right? You are one, but not like a unit to be grasped or counted, for every number and change cannot reach thee, thou art not to be visioned, nor to be figured thus or thus. Right? Again, here is a little bit more rhyming in this one. Kinui, Manui, Ribui, Shinui, Kinui. And continues, right? You can see, you get the point. Right? Thou art one, but to the bound or circumference my imagination would fail me. Therefore I have said, I will guard my ways lest I sin with the tongue. Thou art one, thou art high and exalted, beyond debasement or falling, for how should the one fall? Okay, so you can see again, the Echad, Ginui, Hegioni, Lashoni, Ata Echad, Minpol, Shipol. All right, so this is from a translation by Israel Zangwill. Israel Zangwill was a poet at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, British poet, very well respected, but also the author of so much of our translations into English that we use in the Siddur. He's just a wonderful master of the English language and Hebrew. Now, what Ibn Gavriel is doing is following the science of his day. Remember, the science is ever changing. We tend to think, oh, those primitives were very, very bright. They just didn't have all the tools that we have, but given the tools they had, they did a pretty good job. So here is, right? So he's building on the Ptolemaic universe. And you know your high school science, Ptolemy said the Earth is at the center, and then the sun and the moon and the sun revolve around. Till came Copernicus and said, no, the sun is at the center. And then Galileo had his famous moment where he was called upon by the Inquisition. How dare he support Copernicus? And he was forced to retract it. If you remember this famous story. And then under his breath, he says, but it still moves. Talking about the Earth. So here is from an Arabic translation of Ptolemy's work. And you can see how Ptolemy was trying to solve a mathematical problem in making the universe work. Here's the Earth at the center, and there's a sphere, one of the planets in the sphere. Planets don't move in a nice, neat, even circle. So mathematically, Ptolemy had to try to figure out mathematically, how could you get the circle to move evenly when it's not moving evenly? So he comes up with the idea of a circle inside a circle. Marcella, this is for you as a mathematician, maybe. It's a geometric solution to the problem. And if the planet is moving in a circle inside the orbit, that would help solve the problem of why we see the planet sometimes this way and this way, farther and closer and so on. So what Ptolemy did in his day was make a very good mathematical model that was a good working model, and you could make very accurate predictions about the planetary positions, given the tools that they had. He's around 100 or 150. Not bad. Nobody was talking about the Earth being flat. Nobody was talking about that in his model. Nobody was talking about the Earth standing on the back of a turtle, as was true 2,000 years before that. It was a very sophisticated system, just based on what they had, the information they had. So Ibn Gavriel is going to use that system and now add a moral lesson to it. So we start looking at the Earth. Who shall utter thy mighty deeds, for thou madest a division of the ball of the earth into twain, half dry land, half water. Oh, notice ball of the earth. The Hebrew was kadur haaretz. Nobody was talking about the earth being flat, that you would fall off the edge of the earth. Forget what they told you in school about Columbus, that nobody before him was afraid would do it because they would fall off the edge of the earth. They just didn't do it because they didn't have the tools. But they knew it was round, right? And did surround the water with the sphere of air, in which the wind turneth and turneth in its goings and resteth in its circuits, and didst encompass the air with a sphere of fire, right? We have this assumption. Here's earth, there is air, above the air is a sphere of fire. That is between the earth and then the other elements. And the foundation of these four winds are but one foundation, the source one, from it they issue and are renewed, and from whence it was separated and thus became four heads. Four elements, the Greek four elements: earth, air, fire, water, right? Earth, water, fire, air. Yeah, okay, four elements. And his proof in Genesis, it talks about the Garden of Eden, and four rivers come out of the Garden of Eden. It was separated, become four heads. That is now his proof that there are four elements in the universe. Okay, now what about the moon? Who shall tell thy praise? For thou madest the moon the chief source whereby to calculate appointed times and seasons and cycles and signs for days and the years. Her rule is the night until the coming of the fixed hour, when her brightness shall be darkened, shall clothe herself with a mantle of gloom. Right? She's dark at night, dark in the day, covered in gloom, because from the light of the sun is her light. Right? They're clear. They understand the moon is not a source of light. The moon is just a reflection. The medievals understood it very well. And should it happen on the night of the 14th that both of them stand on the line of the dragon, so that cometh between them, then the moon shall not convey her light, and her illumination shall be extinguished, to the end that all the peoples of the earth shall know that they are the creatures of the Most High, and however splendid they be, there's a judge above them to humble and exalt. Remember the story about the ancients believing that a dragon swallowed the moon? Well, the dragon is the constellation, the name given to the constellation that comes in position when the moon is blocking the sun. When the earth is in a position that it's blocking the light of the sun to the moon, so that even though it's a full moon, the moon is dark. A lunar eclipse, I've seen that. It's a fascinating thing. You still see light, but it's much dimmed, right? So nobody really knew there was a dragon anymore, right? But they understood it's the position of the sun and the moon. And the same thing then, nevertheless she shall live again, right? Sun goes, why is that? Because we as human beings have to understand the moon is not a power. The ancients thought the moon was a power to herself. No, the moon is not a power to herself, not the goddess. Who's the goddess of the moon? Athena, right? No power. Nevertheless, she shall live again after a fall and be resplendent again after a darkness, and when she's in conjunction with the sun at the end of the month, if the dragon shall be between them. And as the dragon is the constellation, it's the northernmost constellation, right? So it is between the Big Dipper and Little Dipper. It has shifted its position because the earth shifts, but at that time it was the northernmost. And both shall stand in one line. The moon shall stand before the sun like a projecting blackness, and shall hide the light thereof from the sight of all beholders. You know, that all who behold may know the sovereignty is not with the hosts and legions of heaven. There's a master over them, obscuring and irradiating. All right, from behind height, he keepeth yea in the heights beyond. And they that imagine that the sun is their God shall be ashamed of their imaginings, for the words are then tested, and shall know 'tis the hand of the Lord hath done this. Sun hath no power, and his alone is the rule who can darken its life, sending it to a slave of its slaves, a beneficiary of its own kindly glow, to becloud its radiance, to cut off the abominable idolizing thereof, and let the sun be removed from sun. In other words, as in opposition to those who assume the sun is a power in and of itself, the sun god, Apollo. No. Its own slave, the moon, because the moon doesn't have any real light of its own, it is the simple moon that can block the light of the sun. So to teach you that the moon is no power in and of itself. Right? Going back to the idea of Abraham and the tradition who says that the sun disappears, the moon disappears, everything has its place and has no power of its own. Right? So this is the solar eclipse. Again, no dragon, it's just the moving of the moon. You can see fairly sophisticated introduction to astronomy that he wants to teach, and people are singing this for Yom Kippur. Now we go ahead. Well, what about the sun? Who shall understand thy secret? Thou hast encompassed the sphere of the shining with the fourth sphere, which is the sun that completeth his circuit in a perfect year. Body 170 times greater than that of the earth, according to the indications and devisings of the intellect. All right? We now know it's only 109 times. Not bad. Not bad. Okay. For an earth-based model, not bad measure. And a portion of light to all the stars of the heavens. There's the sun in this vision that gives lights to the other stars and gives the king salvation and majesty and dominion and awe, reneweth marbles on earth, whether for war or peace, and rooteth up kingdoms, establishing exalted others in the stead. Right? But he's doing all this to the will of the creator who created him in wisdom. Every day prostrates himself before the king, takes a stand in the house of his course. At dawn he raises his head and boweth towards the west. In the evening he goes down. In the morning he returneth. Right? We see the sun as coming and going. It is his worship to God, his praise to God. Right? So he's seeing the sun as giving praise to God. And you imagine, like all the medievals, that the stars, the forces, also control our own lives. It's part of the mechanics of the universe. Right? That's how they're watching it. Now, what else? The greatness of the sun, computing days and years, making fruit tree to burden, the green juice. Now, watch this. 6 months he journeys towards the north to warm the air, and the waters, the woods, and the rocks. And he draws nigh to the north, the days grow longer, and the seasons wax, till there's found a place where day is so lengthened that it lasts 6 months, according to confirmed indications. North Pole is dark. 6 months. Who knows that? Nobody went there. That's all through their approximations of information. And then 6 months he journeys towards the south in its appointed courses, till there's found a place where the night is so lengthened that it lasted 6 months, according to proof of searchers. Who knew there was a south? They knew there was a south. Who could know that there was a dark spot? They knew there was a dark spot. Right? Winter and summer at the opposite poles. So now we just wrap up here. And he goes into the theme. This is what brings us to take the astronomy and make it religion. He goes to God now. He goes through all the planets and descriptions. And who can approach thy seat? From beyond the sphere of intelligence hast thou established the throne of thy glory. There standeth the splendor of thy veiled habitation. The mystery and foundation thus reacheth intelligence, but comes here to a standstill. Even intellect, which operates throughout the universe. The universe operates a magnificent mechanical computer, you may say. And then it reaches a point where it no longer can reach. Beyond that is God. Right? No man may go up with you. And then he connects it to Yom Kippur. This is why it's in the liturgy. O God, I am ashamed and confounded to stand before thee with this my knowledge, that even as the might of my greatness, so is the completeness of my poverty and humbleness. Right? The weakness of my ability. He goes on, you see this. And these are terms that we see in the high holidays liturgy. Right? I am but a clod, a worm, a dust from the ground, wind that fleeteth away and returneth not again. And I'm like an asp, right? A snake, deceitful underneath, uncircumcised of heart, great in wrath, craftsman in sin, etc. Right? He looks at all his faults. He says, what am I? What is my life? What is my might? What is my righteousness? That's a quote from the morning prayer, one of the morning prayers. What am I, right? Naught is the sum of all the days of my being. And he says, then goes on, I know that those who implore favor from thee have for ambassadors their antecedent virtues, right? They have their virtues to go and plead for them, and the righteous, but I have no good deeds, right? I have no good deeds. I am shaken and emptied like a striped vine. I have no righteousness, no rectitude. Right? Look at this. He's throwing himself. I have nothing good to say of myself. I said in the introduction from Pirkei Avot earlier, I said, do not look at yourself as wicked. He's doing it. He's looking at himself. Useless, empty, neither serves. Then may you be your will to have mercy upon me, be near me, favor me with the visitation of thy goodwill. Right? He needs, this is an almost Christian conception, where he has no deed of value. He needs God's grace. That's a very Christianized conception. And then the end, he says, I thank thee, O Lord, that though wroth with me, thine anger is turned away, thou hast comforted me. Thine, O Lord, is loving kindness and all the goodness thou hast bestowed on me, and which will bestow me till the day of my death. For all this it behooves me to give thanks to Lord, to glorify, to extol thee. By the mouth of thy creatures, O yield thyself, thy praise. By these howling be thou self-sanctified. Thou, those owning thy unity, cry thou thy oneness. Through those owning thy unity, cry thy oneness. With the lips of thy glorifiers, chant thee thy glory. Exalt thee in rhapsody through thine exalter, supremely upborn of thy worshipper's breath. For amid the gods and their works, O Lord, there's none like to thee and thine. Mi kamocha, right? There's none like unto thee. May the word of my mouth and my heart's true thought, right? Your Lord, Son of P, right? There's weaves elements of the liturgy. My heart's true thought, find the rock and redeemer, the favor sought. All right, there we go. My rock and my redeemer. Again, classic phrases from the Siddur, the favor sought. Well, that leads us to Rehovim Gevirol. A lot of streets in Israel named after him. One of the major thoroughfares in Tel Aviv named after him. Rambam gets a hospital. Maimonides gets the Rambam Hospital in Haifa, and there's a Maimonides in the United States also, but he gets the great Ibn Gvirol Boulevard in Tel Aviv. Okay, so those are thoughts, takeaway from the mysterious author, this unknown Fons Vitae, who it turns out was in our prayer books and in our poetry all along as the great Jewish philosopher and poet. So you can see how we have unusual thinkers, and that we have not been sitting twiddling our thumbs during these 2,000 years of exile, but we've been shaping world civilization without even knowing it. Without even knowing it. So, any questions, any thoughts for this Shabbat? Okay. So
I have a question,
Yes.
Rabbi.
Go ahead.
Yeah, is there any connection between him, Ibn Gabirol, and Averroes, the Muslim philosopher and doctor?
Now, Averroes is an influence on the Rambam, and I think Averroes is more Aristotelian, and he is Platonic, Neoplatonic. That's a whole different lecture. So what does it mean by Aristotelian? What is Platonic, Neoplatonic? Aristotle, basing from you're working out of pure thought, pure reason to come to your conclusions, whereas in Platonic thought you have preset ideas that are fundamental, and then you build out of them. And it's working up instead of working down. That's simple.
Period?
Huh?
Ibn Gabirol and Averroes, are they from the same?
I don't know exactly. They'd be close. I would guess. So Ibn Gabirol is the year 1000 something, early 1000s. Averroes, I'm not sure when. Probably close in time. Yeah, they're all working out of the same intellectual climate. It's very simple. Like modern Jewish writers are working out of the European intellectual climate, the American intellectual climate. We take it for granted, and so they did it. So in those days, yeah.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Well, astronomy was essentially started with the
As the Babylonians get the credit. Yeah.
No, but it did a lot of progress with the Greeks, and then the Greeks brought it to the Middle East, and at that time, astronomy progressed a lot in the Middle East in the years 600, 500, something like this. And Jewish people were connected with them at that time.
Very much so. Very much so. There was no harsh, in terms of philosophical writing, there was no harsh demarcation line between Jewish and Arabic thinkers, Islamic thinkers. Europe was far behind. And again, keep in mind, Europe proper, the Greek philosophers and so on, they were an essential element of the Roman Empire, but to the east part of the empire. I don't think that much of their thinkings got to Europe proper, even though it was under the Romans for a long time, but those were the Western Romans. So they never had that development, and they didn't catch up then. What literature they had, there were a few monks and some monasteries that kept some of the literature, but it was the Arabs who kept it up without any question.
But also the Jews of Spain had a lot of influence from the Jews from Iraq.
In Talmudic thought, yes.
And probably around there was astronomy.
So there is formal philosophy beginning in Mesopotamia, Rabbi Saadia Gaon, who precedes them by a century, the first formal philosopher. But again, they're working hand in hand. It's like when they're talking and debating, when it's we, in these discussions among Jewish philosophers, they talk about we, they talk about Muslims, they talk about Jews, they talk about Christian philosophers, it's all we. It's all one, and they're all sharing the same line of thinking, very close. So what is interesting is, hey, look, something simple, the number system, right? So the number system, we call them Arabic numerals. They're really from India, right? And so the Arabs who are traveling back and forth bring that into the Middle East. Well, who's doing numbers in Europe? Jews are the people doing numbers in Europe. Jews come from land of Palestine through Italy into Central Europe, the Rhineland and so on. They bring with them the knowledge of measurement, because they're coming in as economists. They're coming in as managers into Central Europe. That's how they're coming in at this point. When they were in Italy, they were very, very poor, but gradually they became more sophisticated. But they had this Talmudic knowledge. A lot of it involves mathematics. So they come into Europe and bring mathematics, measurements, primarily measurements of fields, areas, spaces. William the Conqueror brings his Jewish advisors in with him to establish the English economy that he's going to set up. There's a theory even that you can see this very, it's all under. In England, there's something called the Star Chamber, which has a very important place in English history. A lot of the revolutions, a lot of the overheavals of kings and so on, they revolve around things going on in the Star Chamber. So the question is, well, where does the word star come from? Did it have a star shape? And say, no, it came from the Hebrew word shtar, notes, deeds, debts, mortgages, because that's where they kept the banking notes that the people owed, that the king owed to the Jewish financiers and so on, or the others owed. So that's the theory behind it, right? So there's a tremendous play, right?
Okay.
Okay. All right, so I wish everybody Shabbat Shalom. Okay, and
Thank you very much.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.